Some may call me a politician for this, but there's nothing political about it. I have respect for all of you, and I love you. Now let's fight this out and see who the better man is at the end of the day. Dusty Rhodes. Ladies and gentlemen, that is an absolute, categorization, a characterization, I should say, of every single feud in WWE today. All of it is about respect. It is about love. It is about care. It is about how much mutual appreciation you have for your opponent. Do you remember when Randy Orton and Triple H were feuding in 2009? Do you remember that? Breaking into each other's houses. Randy Orton DDTing Stephanie McMahon. Beating up Vince McMahon. Punting people in the head like Shane McMahon. And then kissing Stephanie while Triple H is tied to a turnbuckle. Do you remember this type of stuff taking place? And now I want you to look back at that time as well, and even earlier this decade, and even the decade before this, of great heels and good faces who you wanted to root for the faces and you genuinely despised the heels. I'm talking about Bald Randy Orton, Hollywood Rock, Final Boss The Rock this year, had a bunch of fans upset. He had millions of the Cody Crybabies upset this year, and he brought millions of eyeballs to the product simply off being a great heel and making you want to root for the face. Then you also have great faces that you wanted to root for. John Cena obviously was pushed heavily at points in his career and it made some fans not be interested in him. But me personally, everyone that I know loved John Cena. John Cena was a lovable guy that you could root for because he had amazing promos, he had amazing talents. He was the best guy in the company for a long time, and he put on pretty solid matches for the most part, right? John Cena is the GOAT in my opinion, right? That is a babyface that you want to root for. Shawn Michaels, when he's going through adversity, right? Undertaker, who was a heel at the time. Shawn Michaels felt like an actual face that you want to root for because his career was on the line. You know what I'm saying? And he was putting on amazing matches, and they had amazing segments and great build-up to both of their Mania matches. This is the type of stuff that makes feuds interesting. Obviously, they don't have to make you, hate these heels back in the day. Like Edge, for example, in my opinion, I think Edge was a very great heel. And he was not always forced to be hated. He just kind of naturally had that feeling to him. And the way he was booked, it just, it came across as a good natural heel. Batista had good heel runs. Chris Jericho had amazing heel runs. His run with Punk that I laugh about sometimes, because it's like he would talk to Punk on the teleprompter. He's like, Punk, I'm done talking about you and your sister. Let's talk about your family. You know what I'm saying? He's like, I'm done talking about your sister. Let's talk about your mother. Let's talk about your father. And he's talking about the alcoholism and everything. Like, Chris Jericho was a great heel, and he's calling everyone parasites and imbeciles. It was awesome. The Miz was a good heel, right? And to combat all these people, you had people the likes of your John Cenas, your CM Punk, who was a face at the time, your Daniel Bryans, who got super over as a face. Heck, even now, even though I don't like him, you had your Cody Rhodes, who in the build-up to Mania 40 was a believable babyface that people could get behind, right? But now you look at all these feuds and everything is boring and bland. And quite frankly, the wrestlers now are a little bit soft. Okay, they just are. We're going to talk about the wrestlers being soft in a second. But back to the feuds, because the center of this video is simply about the fact that feuds now are garbage. WWE feuds now consist of basically just mutual appreciation and mutual respect. And we can go down the line and let me explain my points. Cody Rhodes' championship reign, right? Obviously, the first feud he had was with AJ Styles. In this feud, what exactly was interesting or engaging in any of their promo segments? You had one segment where AJ Styles actually, he cut a pretty solid promo. He was like, Cody, you just run away. You were Stardust. You're not built for this moment. You're not built to be champ. And I was like, that was decent. But what did Cody Rhodes say in the bulk of his promos with AJ Styles? I respect you. I appreciate you. I looked up to you. You have a great past. You've carried this company in the past. Like, it's the same stuff. All it is just buttering your opponent up. What happened to the fighting? This is supposed to be an actual fight. You're supposed to be invested in these feuds with two characters from opposite sides that actually do not like each other. This is show business. This is entertainment. We're supposed to believe that the heel and the face do not like each other. But in every one of these feuds, it's like the heels and faces are in love with each other. Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan. Rhea Ripley, right after the first month of this Rhea Liv thing when Rhea returned, the feud was interesting up until SummerSlam. I'm not going to lie. After that, it became boring and dead because nobody cares. Nobody cares. It's the same thing. Rhea comes out. Rhea. Rhea, I took your title. I took Dom. I had the Judgment Day. And then Rhea responds with, I'm going to take back my title back. I'm gonna take my title back. The one thing I never lost, yeah. The one thing I never lost, yeah. It's like, why don't you sit down, yeah? Why don't you get a good promo, yeah? Why don't you actually wrestle more than 3 matches a year, yeah? You know what I'm saying? It's ridiculous. These promos now are now built off of respect and nonsense. It's the same thing in different feuds, like Gunther as world champion, for example. His feud with Damian Priest to actually get the belt was built on absolutely nothing. Gunther had one decent promo where he was like, you're street trash, and all I have to do is sit back and, succeed while you have to do all these things and grind because you're not built for this, right? And I was like, that's decent. But then after Gunther wins the belt, every feud is built off of nothing. His feud with Randy Orton is built off what? What do you think it was built off of? Respect. Randy, I respect you. I admire you. You have paved the way for greats. What are you talking about? Do you like the guy or do you not like the guy? Do you want to fight him or not? You know what I'm saying? I'm sick of all the buttering up that happens here. Cody Rhodes and Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens admittedly calls himself a jobber, and even with that, Cody Rhodes gives him a championship shot. He's like, you paved the way for this wrestling industry, and I know that you have tried your hardest to be champion, and I want to give you that opportunity today, because my name is Dr. Libations of the Libation Station, and I am going to bring you great matches throughout the nation. That rhymed, don't hit the player, hit the game. But you get the point. It's the same stuff. Every feud now is bland. You don't actually believe that these heels and faces hate each other. You just don't. When Randy Orton and Gunther are fighting, do you believe they dislike each other? Of course not, because they tell you consistently, we like each other, we respect each other, we admire each other. It's nonsense, man. It absolutely is. The last feud that actually felt like people actually didn't like each other was CM Punk and Drew. But even CM Punk and Drew McIntyre, why did they not like each other? CM Punk wasn't in good shape at Royal Rumble, and he got DDT'd and tore his triceps, so now you don't like Drew McIntyre? You know what I'm saying? And then we have to force Drew McIntyre to say, I prayed for this and it happened because I can't stop thinking about Punk. You know what I'm saying? Shout out Drew McIntyre, by the way. I hope he comes back to Raw soon because Raw desperately needs him, man. Drew McIntyre is awesome. And CM Punk, is going to go down as an all-time great because, his early runs in WWE were absolutely amazing. But anyways, man, that's not the point. The point is, feuds like this one, for example, make you think that they're great. But when you really think about the basis of the feud, if CM Punk never got injured in his tricep, right, but Drew McIntyre still eliminated him or hit the DDT or whatnot or cost him the match, what would the feud actually be built on? Seriously, right? A bracelet? You know what I'm saying? A bracelet? Are you kidding me? It's ridiculous, man. It's the same thing with Jey Uso, for example. Jey Uso, in the feud with Braun Breaker like a few weeks ago for him to get the first IC belt, Braun Breaker and Jey Uso built that feud up over 4 months, but the actual feud itself had good build-up and good storytelling in it in just that 4 weeks alone, and it had good promos, where Jey Uso was like, this gonna be shorter than your NFL career, I'm a dog walk you. Braun Breaker's like, you've never won anything, and you've been around for 15 years, all this stuff. That's how you build a good feud. But the majority of these feuds and these, conflicts, quote-unquote, are all built off of respect and love, and you cannot have a thriving feud and a successful, match. Well, I mean, the match can still be good, but the culmination of it will not feel as impactful if the build-up to the feud is not good. These are things that have to be understood and found out by, wrestling fans. It's the same situation with Cody and Gunther leading up to Crown Jewel. They respect each other. They admire each other. Cody, you're the captain of the industry. Gunther, you're the workhorse. Cody, you're awesome. Gunther, you're amazing. Dude, you're amazing in the race. Like, what is this? What is this? Every feud, I respect this. I respect it. I respect you. I respect that. Go back and look at the feuds over the last 5 months, and you will literally find the word respect probably said over 150 times in just the last year or two alone in WWE. That's all these promos are now at this point. There's a couple of outliers. Your CM Punk, Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, Drew McIntyre. These dudes cut promos with unique and interesting material. That's why I liked the Drew McIntyre and Punk feud. I'm not going to lie and say it was bad, but I'm not going to also tell you it's one of the greatest feuds ever. It was a good feud for what it was. They made something out of Punk getting injured, and it turned into be a good thing that went, a long-form story, and it worked out in a pretty solid match, a good match, I would say, at Hell in a Cell. Or not Hell in a Cell, Bad Blood. But that's basically what I wanted to say about feuds, okay? Feuds now are basically reduced down to all about respect and love and care, and that takes out the realistic element and the actual, blood feud element that's supposed to make these feuds great. You don't get stuff like Rock and Austin, Rock and Hogan, what else? John Cena and Randy Orton, Triple H and Randy Orton, so on and so forth. You don't get good feuds by people just pretending like they don't like each other, and doing a bad job of it. You're acting, you're entertaining. You have to at least pretend like you don't like the person and maybe add in some real life heat elements to make it interesting. That's all it is. Drew McIntyre and CM Punk don't hate each other. After the show was over at Bad Blood, they probably went and got a pint of beer at the local bar in Atlanta, Georgia after that good match they put on, bro. Like, come on. These dudes don't actually hate each other in real life, but you believe they do because the storytelling, the performances, and the entertainment and the quality they put into these segments actually make you believe such. Now, let's talk about the next point in this video, and this is the last point I need to talk about, because I wanted to make this video like mostly talking about how feuds suck now, and then the other part now is going to be talking about why WWE wrestlers now are absolutely soft. Obviously, wrestlers now are getting hurt more than arguably, I mean, honestly, I wouldn't say more than arguably ever before, but they're getting hurt at an alarming rate considering the fact that they don't wrestle. If you do the comparisons and the ratios to how much they wrestle to how much they get injured, it's absurd. Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, Cena, you know what I'm saying? Guys in the 2010s even, 2000s even, Kurt Angle's, Brock Lesnar's, right? Who took a break, but when he was there, he was wrestling pretty consistently, right? Rey Mysterio, Eddie Guerrero, you know what I'm saying? Seth Rollins in the 2010s, Roman Reigns, you know, up until like 2022. You know, even Cody Rhodes when he was back in WWE. You know, all those people, Daniel Bryan, you know, Sheamus's, Randy Orton's, AJ Styles, list goes on and on and on. All of these people were wrestling house shows, you know, your live events, obviously, and they were wrestling PLEs, and they were also wrestling week to week on Raw most of the time, and Raw and on SmackDown, obviously. They would wrestle at least 2 live television matches a month. Now, let's look at today's current crop of wrestlers that don't wrestle. All of your main champions do not wrestle. This is why your matches get repetitive, and why I believe that some of these wrestlers don't have the drive to get better. I understand that wrestling is now being booked by a guy who actually wrestled in Triple H, and he's one of the greatest, you know, WWE superstars of all time. But the problem is with this is that wrestlers are just given passes to not show up to work and to not wrestle. Now, obviously, Brock Lesnar, Roman Reigns, you know, Undertaker, a couple of these part-time guys you're going to bring up the question for. But all those dudes I just named, when they do show up, they contribute massively. So it doesn't matter if they don't show up week to week. But people like Cody Rhodes, for example, why is the WWE champion barely wrestling on television? We've been through this before. 5 total matches on SmackDown all year since becoming champ? Really? Gunther, 2 or 3 Raw matches since becoming champ, nearly about to be 4 months ago in about 2 weeks? You see what I'm saying? It's nonsense. These guys are not wrestling, but yet people like Rhea Ripley, for example, she's wrestled, 2 Raw matches all year, maybe 3 Raw matches all year. It's been 11 months. And even with that, she's had a major injury with her shoulder, and then she's been missing time, and then when she is there, she's cutting the same repetitive promo and not wrestling. Yet she still is breaking her shoulder, or she still is taking time off because of a, you know, quote-unquote injury. I don't know if it's kayfabe or not. She'll probably be back on Raw next week. I mean, actually, you know, there has been some spoilers for next week's Raw. Click away now, but apparently Rhea's going to show up. But at the end of the day, it's like, and, you know, you're not wrestling. If you're not wrestling and not cutting promos, you're soft because you don't have the drive to actually get better. You don't have the drive to reinvent yourself. You don't have the drive to reinvigorate your promos and do something unique or interesting that nobody has done yet, or that nobody does at all pretty much, like barely does. You get what I'm saying? It's the same thing for Gunther. None of his promos are reimaginative. Damian Priest doesn't have any reimaginative promos. It's the same stuff. Right? These people don't have the drive to actually be interesting, to be engaging, to stand out, to do something unique. They all don't wrestle. The only people that wrestle are dudes who are like 35 to 45 years of age. Why do you think Kofi Kingston, Rey Mysterio, and Sheamus and Orton have wrestled more matches on live TV this year than Cody Rhodes and Gunther combined probably? You get what I'm saying? It's ridiculous at this point. If you don't have the drive to get better, if you don't have the drive to get better on the mic, in the ring, or wrestle at all, because just because Triple H books it so you're not slated to have a match, that doesn't mean that you can't override it. You're the WWE champion. If you want to wrestle and put on a show for the crowd and actually engage us in your storylines and engage us as you as a believable champion, then wrestle. It's that simple. Wrestle. Do something unique on the mic. Do a character change. Do something. But there's too much bland and just sitting around and not really believing in yourself, right? It's ridiculous, man. So that's pretty much the rant for today. I wanted to cover just a couple things, you know, wrestlers who are now just soft. And on top of that, you know, obviously the feuds now are absolute garbage. The wrestlers being soft is something I'm going to expand more on probably in a later video. That's why I only touched upon it briefly, but I will get back to that in a future video. But with that being said, hope you guys have a phenomenal day. Peace out. One love.